You are now entering Clearview, Illinois city limits. The name of tonight's tale is Ghostbustin' in City Hall. Lester walked into a town hall meeting for the first time. He didn't know what to expect. Living in Clearview, he had heard quite a lot of things that happened in the city that went so far left as to be considered fable more than rumor. It wasn't until last week did he get a taste of the supernatural firsthand. He wasn't the type to reach out for help, he wasn't the type to complain, but he had witnessed things in this little suburb that defied explanation, and he had to know if he was alone in this. Every odd person he noticed wandering in the woods or injured stranger holding their side in the dead of night became a mystery. Were they going through their own personal horror stories, or were they the monsters themselves? Lester didn't know, and in fact, couldn't know. He sat in the back of the meeting, unsure on what to add or what to say. If he blurted out something about it, how would they take it? In a lot of ways, he figured this must have been what it was like to be gay before the 80s, before you could easily find your tribe. A woman in an ugly white floral patterned dress had the floor. She babbled on about too much fluoride in the drinking water. Lester wondered idly, who drank tap water anymore anyways? Lester listened to very mundane, banal grievances for nearly 30 minutes. He drifted. The monotone of their voices lulled him to sleep, but he woke when the MC asked loudly, "Are there any other points of business?" Lester froze. This was why he had come. This was his time to take the floor. He had to admit that he was scared, but what did he care if strangers thought he was crazy? Yeah, Lester said, raising his hand with uncertainty. The MC pointed to him to stand up and be acknowledged. Yeah, I'm Lester Hope. I've been living in Clearview for 10 years. I was a general contractor on the Last Bastion Casino, and I sorta just stayed. Well, I think we all heard the rumors. Lester's throat tightened. It felt as if the room was even more quiet and still. He thought he could hear his own heart beating. We all hear about odd things that go on here, right? The MC spoke up, giving Lester a way out if he needed it. If you want to talk rumor, you'll at least need to back it with a question that we all, the people, can address. Lester could have sat down, and perhaps he should have, but he didn't. Well, I mean, what do we do about the supernatural? He paused heavily after lobbing that question to either be dropped or knocked out. The gathered crowd all chuckled, but it wasn't a unanimous glee as one may hear after a joke, but a nervous laughter that one may use to cover their own pain. Every night at 3:26 a.m., a ghostly woman taps on my window, waves to me, and beckons me to follow her into the forest. Everyone laughed harder. One man blurted, "I don't think this is a problem for a town hall forum meeting. Maybe you should try Ghostbusters." Lester tried to smile, but it came out wrong. It made him sad in a way he couldn't quantify with words. The feeling he was an island out in a sea of monsters with no conceivable end in sight. "Was that a real question, Mr. Hope?" asked the MC as to give him yet another out. This time he grabbed the olive branch. "No, I suppose it wasn't," Lester said with a defeated smile. After he had been completely laughed out of the public forum, he stayed till the end, because he felt if he didn't, other people might know that he wasn't joking. He didn't know if he could ever show his face in public again, so he knew he was either going to deal with the problem himself, or he was going to have to move and never talk about this place again. Lester hit up the hardware store before heading home. He Googled what he could on ghosts and bought a few bags of salt and pieces of iron. He'd get holy water first thing in the morning. It was well after sundown when he returned home. When he ducked down to grab a heavy bag of salt out of the trunk, he felt a hand clamp over his mouth. He attempted to swing at whoever it was that attempted to grab him, but someone else grabbed his hand. He heard tires screeching and the sliding doors of a van. His eyes grew heavy and he went unconscious as several hands transferred him to the vehicle. When Lester came to, he was without sight, but he could smell the musty smell of a basement cellar. "He's awake," said a male voice. Someone yanked a black bag from his head. Lester was greeted by two people, all in black wearing goblin masks. "Why am I here? What are you doing?" "You asked a question at town hall tonight. We are going to answer it for you. Why do we not speak of things that aren't natural? Yeah, No, you're gonna get your answer tonight, said the second goblin, who could have been a woman who changed her voice to make it deeper. Lester's hands were bound, but not his legs. He thought to kick at them, but thought better of it. The most he'd accomplish is split his pants and embarrass himself. Though that course of action wasn't off the table, he figured he'd wait until they showed him whatever it was he came to see. The two walked Lester through a basement that felt oddly familiar to him. There was a third man standing guard in front of a boiler room door. He wore a goblin mask, as did the others, but held in two hands an axe, not a fire axe, but one that might be used for an execution. Lester could hear sounds of struggle, even the unholy squealing of something he couldn't identify from nature. The two that herded him were at either shoulder. He thought to make a break for it, for as much as he was being detained, they only restrained his hands. With a clever placed juke move, perhaps he could give them the slip and outrun them. As soon as he set his mind to flee, that was when the man with the axe opened the door, and one of the goblins at his back clamped onto his shoulder. He jumped, from the sudden touch, then again from what he saw inside. It was a small room whose true purpose was a question mark, but its current one was clear. It was where they held a monster. Lester's eyes widened when he saw bound to a heavy table a creature of unknown origin. The thing had arms, legs, torso, and a head, more or less, but its skin was rubbery and unreal. Lester squinted his eyes to see if this was real or a man-made fabrication. There was another person in black hovering over the thing with a sword on his hip, and yet another goblin who had two hands on a shotgun. In a room this small, he certainly could hit everyone, if that was his will to do so. "What is that?" Lester demanded with a good bit of honest fear. The thing's arms stretched out longer than a human arm might, and its neck and throat expanded like a toad. "That, Lester, is the type of thing we don't talk about in Clearview," said one of the two original goblins. Lester looked at a small mobile snack tray next to the thing that was presented with sharp bits of metal along with shot glasses of liquid. "Here's a serious question for you, Lester. Now that you know things like this exist, what do you intend to do about it? You spoke up. You took the first step. Are you ready for the next?" asked the goblin. Lester didn't answer because he wasn't quite sure if it was a question or rhetorical. "You can answer. We do need to know. Do things like this need to exist?" asked the female goblin. Lester was thrown off guard by the ambiguous question. A part of him knew this must have been a test. What he said here may very well be what decided if he lived or died. "Go ahead, look at it," said the other goblin. It took a great deal of willpower to look the thing in the face, something so close to human but unequivocally not. Its face reverted back to something that resembled human, though Lester could tell it strained itself to do so. "These bastards did this to me. I'm not a monster," the thing said in the same panicked way a man might. Lester shook his head in disbelief. Did they have the power to change people into that rubbery thing? The female goblin spoke. "So Lester, you can make a decision, him or us." The other man goblin brandished a gleaming knife. Before Lester could flinch, he cut the ties that bound him. The big man with the executioner's axe handed it to Lester. It was heavy, too heavy for him to actually competently wield it if the situation called for it. All the goblins backed up and leaned on the wall. Lester stood there paralyzed with fear. It was just him and the thing on the table put on display. "Finish it off and we know you pick us. Don't and well," the goblin said, leaving his counter-reaction unsaid. Lester rose the axe. He looked at the malleable beast who exerted itself to stay human as to relate to him. "Don't do it. Don't. Man, you don't." Lester rose the axe, attempting to rationalize why it was an abomination, but it became as heavy as his guilt. "What did it do? Does it deserve this?" Lester asked. "You need a reason? Look at it. It hides amongst us to be us. Who did you kill to take their identity?" said the goblin. Nobody. I don't do that." "He does, Lester. He does. Trust me. Do it." the woman explained. Lester hardened his heart. Even if he didn't do anything, they believed it did. So what would it mean to him to not kill it? He rose the axe again. No, no, no! Lester put the axe down, knowing what it could mean. I just don't know, Lester said. The big man who gave him the axe stepped up and slowly took it back. Lester held his breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it didn't. It's okay, said the woman. We honestly wouldn't have been able to trust you if you had agreed too fast. It would mean you're either a psychopath or might likely be something that preys on us. She handed Lester the hood. Put that on. We use this place sometimes. We don't want to compromise it, said the woman goblin. Lester put the hood back on as the female goblin and the other began to walk him away. He faintly heard abrupt pleas for mercy before he heard a resounding thud. The ride back was not as antagonistic. In fact, it could have been considered pleasant. They spoke about how they got together to cull the things that went bump in the night, but they had to go to extremes never to reveal themselves, lest the monster strike back. They didn't pressure him to join their crusade, but they made it clear he could. If he ever put a red bulb in his exterior lights, they'd come find him again. Lester got out of the van and felt like a tagged animal re-released in the wild. He had never considered the lives or unlives of monsters before he had spent much of the night pondering it. So, when 3:26 a.m. rolled around and that eerie, spectral woman beckoned him into the woods, he closed his curtains. You are now exiting Clearview, Illinois. I hope you enjoyed the trip.